everyone. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the organization hosting today's event. This panel discussion is hosted by HR Open House, an 8-year-old HR community that brings together HR professionals, business leaders, consultants, and practitioners to learn, share, and grow together. Over the years, HR Open House has built a strong presence across multiple cities in India, creating a vibrant platform for meaningful conversations and professional networking. I would also like to acknowledge the chief sponsor for today's event, Meeta Kanhere, who is the founder of Meraki Leadership Solution, whose work focuses on helping leaders build practical leadership capabilities through coaching, facilitation, and leadership development. And now, switching hats from sponsor to moderator, it is my privilege to welcome all of you to today's conversation. A warm welcome and a special thank you to our distinguished panelists for being part of this discussion on a topic that matters most to every professional: leadership muscles, built, practice, and earned. When people hear the word leadership, they often think of titles, authority, or position. But one belief that has aligned my, work over a period of time as a leadership coach is it's leadership is not a position. It is a daily workout. As someone who has been playing tennis for years, I've realized that no one learns a strong backhand by attending a workshop on tennis. We have to build it through practice, through making mistakes, through repetition and coaching. And leadership is no different, I believe. And today's discussion is about leadership muscles that are built, practiced, and earned over time. So think for a moment of leaders who have influenced you the most. Chances are you remember them not for their designation, but for how they have built trust, influenced people, helped teams grow. And over the next 1 hour, we will explore what leadership muscles matter most, how they are developed through real experiences, and lessons leaders learn as they grow through challenges and increasing responsibilities. My hope is that each one of you leaves with at least one insight or a practice that you can apply immediately. So let's learn from one another's experiences, stories, and insights that we get today. Let me set the context by introducing our first panelist, Dr. Meenal Rao, who is the Group HR Head at Thermax Limited. With over 22 years of work experience in building people practices and leadership capability across organizations, she leads the people and culture agenda at Thermax and has extensive experience in talent management, leadership development, and organizational transformation. When she was asked to describe leadership in one word, she chose the word direction. Let me also introduce our second panelist, Mr. Mayank Tandon, who is a seasoned compensation and benefits leader at T-Systems with over 18 years of experience in designing reward strategies and driving organizational effectiveness. He brings deep expertise in compensation, benefits, rewards, and performance management. He has partnered with business leaders to align people practices with organizational goals. And when he was asked to describe leadership in one word, he chose the word vision. Please join me in welcoming the two leaders who have not only studied leadership from different lenses, but have also practiced and shaped it through their work. Let's welcome Dr. Meenal Rao and Mr. Mayank Tandon.
Thanks, Meeta.
Thank you, Meeta.
I'd like to begin this conversation with a question that sits at the heart of today's discussion. And the question is for both of you. Yeah, you may go one after the other. When you look back at your career, what is one leadership muscle that has transformed your effectiveness as a leader, and what experience has helped you build it?
Do I go first?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, Meeta, I think empathy and communication is something which, helped me build my effectiveness. And maybe if I go back when I started my careers almost 22 years back, I was typically like any other, young, vibrant, energetic leader, which I'm still in terms of the energy levels. But
Mhm.
And typically when you start getting into an organization at an individual contributor level, and then you start moving up, the first thing which everybody wants to prove when they get into an organization at very younger years of their career is about how do managers see them in terms of how do they work, the quality of work, how do they close things, how quick are they, how proactive are they. And I think I was one of them as well, trying to fit the frame when it came to the expectations of your managers. Must say, my career started with an organization where I used to directly work with the chairperson. Okay, that was when I joined as an MT, and of course that really shaped me in terms of how I became as an individual personality over years. And that of course spoke about trying to be very very perfectionist about trying to do your work, getting into details, ensuring that you don't go wrong on your work, because if you're working with the topmost person in the organization, that's the degree of accurateness you require to you know uh, have your work done. And I think that carried on for very long, where I thought that's the world I have to be in, where you've to ensure that you don't make mistakes. Slowly you started getting a team as you started growing in your career, and then the same feeling percolated down. You can't make mistakes, so of course your team can't make mistakes. Okay,
True.
if you have to be very accurate at work, the team has to be accurate at work. If you can work 24 by 7, the team has to work 24 by 7. Okay, and I think this was something which was so ingrained deeply that I thought that's the way of life. Okay, but
Uh,
when you started growing the leadership ladder, I think all those I would say experiences moved away, because then you started realizing that you're also working, you're getting work done from people. Yeah, it's not about you doing it by yourself. You may be available at a certain time, but not necessary. People have their own priorities back. Yeah, other than the working hours. And I think that changed the face of how I looked at leadership. Building empathy was something which then started creeping in. Not that it wasn't there before, maybe I didn't express it enough. Yeah, because see, we all as humans are do have that element of empathy. I mean, especially when you're married, you have children. I don't think anybody is void of not having empathy. Yeah, but it just didn't creep in when it came to work performance, because you always felt that, oh, you've been very high on performance, so the team has to perform. Okay, but that was a realization when the entire piece of empathy and communication was something which I started building in. Yeah, and then of course uh, the empathy piece also made me realize that you can't measure everybody in terms of their performance at the same level. Everybody's got some or the other strength and some limitations, and I think that's one more thing which I learned. How do you leverage strengths of people, then looking at what are their limitations. So how do you complement your the skills of your team. Yeah, so I think empathy was something which I built over years, but it really helped me as I moved up the ladder.
Lovely. That's absolutely, interesting to know your reflection of your journey so far with empathy, communication, and attention to detail sitting at the core of how you've reflected back and the learning you're taking ahead. And I'm equally keen to listen to Mayank. If you can also share, your reflections on what is that one leadership muscle that has transformed your effectiveness as a leader.
Sure, but unfortunately, I just got a power failure, so my system just got restarted. Just allow me 1 second to fit the camera. I'm really sorry for this.
No problem.
Maybe Meeta, till then I may just add in here.
Sure.
Uh, so the empathy piece, of course, allowed me to, uh, if you look at a typical definition of empathy, putting yourself into others' shoes, it also helped me build a lot of patience.
Mm,
Yeah,
wow.
because when you are
Yeah,
an individual contributor, at probably very younger, age of your career,
true.
it it's all in your hands.
Correct.
Okay. And when you start growing in your career, not everything is in your hands in terms of the work which is expected out of you as a leader.
True. There's a lot of interdependence later.
There's a lot of interdependency, and maybe you have to also go by the space of your team.
True.
I
True.
think that's something which I really learned the hard way. Uh, Moving away from being a perfectionist was
That
very
must have been
difficult.
a great journey, I'm
Very
sure.
difficult journey. Very difficult. And I must say, I still at times cannot get out of it. But
True. True.
fine, I've made up my terms. I mean, I've gotten terms with them, I must say.
Sure. 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 Lovely. Appreciate your honest reflection. Yes, Mayank. I hope you're back.
Yes, I'm back, and I really align to what Meenal has just mentioned is that. But I think from my side, I'll just add two more points into this. When it comes to a leadership, it becomes more on trust and ownership of it, because the journey where I come from is more data driven into a kind of work where and there's a small team which reflects the bigger organization to ensure that things are getting right, because your people get impacted with that. So it
Hmm.
resembles that I come from a consulting background. I spent around 7 years into in consulting, where more you work on the data, where you work on the client side. But the question which arises on my mind every time is that what we do out of this data, the report we churn out, what does the companies do with that? How do that impacted with that? So then the time came when I moved to other side of the world and I became an HR, a compensation and benefit professional. And one of my leader in the past, it's a growing organization, IT organization, way back in 2019. He gave me this opportunity to own this complete portfolio for me. And then it gives me an ownership to understand is that somebody trusts you on that. Whatever you bring to your table is more about trust, because whatever the decision or whatever the feedbacks or kind of suggestions which I provide to the leadership, that's going to impact an organization of 1,500 employees. And then it hits the COVID. It's the same phase when the things became more tough for us. Then I think the ownership came up to us to, because being coming from not only to compensate, now also become an employee side of a benefit supports that needs to come in. So the time when nobody was there to support the organization or your family, then you became, and you have to own that part, and you ensure that all your employees on the benefit side get supported. And again, the same leader, the same person, all of us as a family were impacted. He still trusts us. He gave me an opportunity to go back and decide what is better for an organization, for our employees. And that gives me a kick when I say that how you because our roles are basically works more into a backside of an HR. Though it's a leadership role, though you impact all the topmost leadership, but we are not a front face like the HR professional, HR VPs. We sit at the back and we derive the data. But this gives us an ownership to me to go back and talk to the employees to ensure that we are there to support you in that bad times. So with that, the leadership skills start developing in me. So I'll say that because coming from another side to moving to an HR side, it was not easy. So that somebody has to come and hold your hand. And I think that was the person who holds my hand and give me that trust that yes, you have an capability to get it done. So I think for all of us who is young into this, you have to ensure that there are certain is that you have to build a trust between your leadership, your company, your people, those who are supporting you in that case, or you are supporting them, and you have to own what you do. The ownership is very important, because the day you start owning, the day you start delivering, the people will start trusting you with that. And that's very important, at least the field where I own it, because I know I have trained multiple interns, junior folks coming from a different side of the field. I have trained them, many of them. So the only thing which I taught them is that, see, you are very important to an organization. Though you are not faced, people will not talk to you, people will not come to you directly, but still understand is that your decision is so important for the organization, so that to take a bigger decisions to control the cost, employee cost, to give a rewarding experience to all of them. So ensure that you build that trust between the organization, employee leadership, and everything. I think that's also come into once you become, and it's your daily life also, things around it. So you start thinking like, when whatever you do in your general life also, you think that you should own that, you should try to be a perfectionist of doing whatever you are doing. So I think that's how becoming an HR professional is, not only that you are an HR at an organization also. So once you become an HR, you become a proper human resource professionals who sees a perfection everywhere, not only at office, home, even if you are at the market or a shopping mall, so also you see that things, okay, it's not organized. So I think that's something which is very important for me, and that's a kickoff when I moved to an core HR, and it's how I started learning. And I think I moved to a leadership role only directly because it's a growing organization. I got that role and I started performing immediately.
It would be interesting to listen to your journey as well, Maya, coming from a consulting background and moving into the corporate world where trust, ownership, and integrity played a huge role because you were focusing largely on data and numbers, and how you could gain and give trust across the organization, influencing stakeholders. I'm sure there are a lot of leadership lessons which we are going to dig along the way and unfold in the conversation going further. Meenal, I'm going to come back to you to understand from your experience when you have worked with different leaders. What leadership muscle do you see differentiating high performing leaders from average managers today? If you can share an example of a leader who developed this muscle and the impact he or she created.
Yeah. So, Meeta, for me, the muscle of receiving and giving feedback, extremely important for building. I mean, that's the leadership muscle. I think leaders should build because I think your book also talks about it, talking about self awareness, and self awareness will only come in when you know what people around you are thinking about you. Okay.
Absolutely.
So for me, leaders who take and give feedback without being hesitant about it. Okay, and I was talking about in one of our discussions about how courageous are you to give feedback and take feedback. Okay, that definitely differentiates average performers from high performers because it's a feedback loop. It's a to and fro mechanism which continuously works for you. Yeah, so I have seen organizations having appraisal processes which happen once in a year, but of course, a lot of organizations are also moving to quarterly mechanisms. Yeah, but when you look at organizations with once a year feedback mechanisms, I don't know how many of them even remember what feedback to give to their team because I'm not too sure how many of them even note it down or have a journal mechanism to ensure that I'm going to talk about all these things at the end of the year. Vis-a-vis also, how much are your team members going to remember of what feedback they want to give you? So the feedbacks would be so recent when it comes to the end of the year, and they may just talk about probably the top layer of the iceberg.
True, true. I
So,
agree.
so for me, I think that's very important leadership muscle which you need to build as a leader because you continue to evolve in the process. Then, yeah.
True.
So,
Feedback muscle is absolutely underrated in that sense. Even I agree on that.
extremely
And
underrated, and it's not about Mita giving feedbacks.
yeah, it's also about
How courageous
receiving.
are you to take feedbacks?
Yeah, yeah.
One, and working on that feedback. I think taking is very easy than working on
It's
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, so it's very
There's
easy
a
for me
lot.
to say that, okay, tell me what you like about me or what you don't like about my leadership style. But then ensuring that if you're convinced with it, trying to shift it. If you're not convinced with it, going deeper. And I have just one very recent example. I was giving a feedback to one of the leaders, within my business. Okay, and as an HR fraternity, I think we should be doing that because that's our role. Okay,
True.
I mean we need to be ensuring that our leaders are seen in the right frame by the team. Okay,
Mm,
not only about giving feedbacks but helping them understand how are they perceived by the team.
yeah, that's very important.
And we were just talking about it, and I just happened to mention about an XYZ feedback to the leader. Okay, and you won't believe I forgot about it because eventually I said I've given the feedback. Now it's the turn of the leader to take it or not take it, and if wants to take it, work on it. You won't believe. After 2 days, he happened to again call me for some work, And he said, "You mentioned about this 2 days back." And I was like, "Yes." And he said, "Can I go a little deeper to understand what you mean by this for me?" I think
Hmm. That's deep.
that's
Mm,
a sign of, being a leader, because
true.
he probably wanted to know, what do I exactly mean by this? Okay, and then move probably in a direction to say that, how do I change this if I'm convinced?
Very true. Very true.
So that's where I feel that's very, and I do that very often.
Fantastic. I
For me,
think
I
that's
don't wait
quite
for feedbacks at the end of the, in fact, end of the year, I don't have much to talk about in the appraisal other than the goal plan. Feedbacks
true.
go straight uh, while the work is happening. It
That's
helps
how it
people.
should be. Yeah,
It helps people. And the same goes to me,
absolutely.
because in pockets, the teams have been very open to come and walk up to you and say that we didn't like what you did. That's fine. Yeah, maybe
Mm,
you justify it. Not, I wouldn't say defend it, but justify it to say why you did it. Maybe there's a
true.
different perspective which the person doesn't know why you probably have responded in that, way. But if that transparency is, then that's where I'm talking about the communication piece. The more you communicate, the more, you will build trust.
Very true. I think everything goes hand in hand there, where,
So
how you're communicating, what you're communicating, the frequency of feedback. And I think the example is absolutely powerful, and it strikes at the point of the acceptance level of a leader to, receive that feedback, work on himself or herself. And I think that that's really a beautiful journey, also as a role model, I would say. And
absolutely.
lovely, lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Meenal. Um, I'm also curious to understand from Mayank, with a lot of exposure in compensation and benefits, which is often viewed as a highly analytical and process-driven function. Which leadership muscle has been most critical for your success beyond the technical expertise, which you might have built? And maybe if you can share any experience where you have influenced stakeholders, rather than just having the right data.
Okay, I think there is something which, before I tell you the leadership, Marshall, I'll say that this job requires an accuracy and an insight, data-driven insight. So I think I initially mentioned also that our leadership is a very small group in that case. So I own a team of 3 people. That's it, out of a 5,000 employee. So for me, is more that again to giving or giving again following up to me, Nesma, in that passing out a right feedback when you are not able to perform, and then it becomes like your transparency becomes very important. So that's some skill you need to have, because so overall, if I'll tell you, our data impacts in that way that somebody be in a job or can may lose into a job, and into the current scenario, the market is the way it is behaving. A single point of error which we make, or single point of data interpretation which is not done correctly, will be something which may impact to that level that organization may have a financial impact, or employee may have to lose the job. So in that case, if I frame some of the examples in my past, is that post COVID era, when the market was very hot in terms of hiring the people, retaining the people, and also the employees, those you already have. They have offers with three, four, five offers. Also, they're doing a just market hopping in that way. But what happened with that is, what the complete change which has happened with that is, there are a lot of data which was required. So we went back to market to get all those data, but in returns the data which was not accurate in that ways, because this is a multiple year data which gets to a complete transformed you say average, mean, medians, whatever you talk about. The data talks rightly what where we are, but it's more about that how you get an insights out of the market. So that drives me again into that leadership role, that I go reach out to the multiple people, those who are in my roles, maybe leaders, maybe inception people, maybe in consulting organizations, to understand how the market is happening. I was a part of an IT organization that piece, and then again, the IT jobs were at fire in that way. The people having an offer with a 3x of their current salary. So companies has to control their cost. Companies has to ensure that people stays. Companies want to attract the talents because they've already let a lot of people go in the era, COVID era. So then what happens is that along me and with one of my colleague, if I'll say a colleague, not only a junior resource in that case, we both have set up a complete mechanism to understand is that what is coming in terms of people leaving us, and what are the interviews what we are doing through our recruitment teams. We start analyzing the data. So what insight comes out of it is that it's not even a bubble, because it's more like uh, the misinterpretation of the data which happened in 2020 and 2021. People thought the market will go down, but eventually the market has opened up, and the resource were been into such a demand that the companies were not able to hold. In retail, what had happened? So when we have seen that, okay, what needs to be targeted? I cannot increase the salary to that level. Then what we did a smart moves to have a good benefits plans in place, to have a long-term plans to ensure that our critical resources are getting into it. We ensure that what are my niche jobs, what are my non-niche jobs, whom I can let them go, whom I have to retain. So we have done a complete ownership of the data. So that's where I come in and say that if you own the data, if you have an accuracy, you have to ensure that what you deliver is 100% correct. And that is called an accuracy, which is very important, in at least in my space of world which is there. And then in result of it, what we have seen my fellow colleagues into a different line of HR, the TA, the HR VPs, and the learnings. So all have to come together with that. So we have said that, okay, this skills are coming at learning has to come up with the trainings, and to ensure that my people and managers are getting trained rightly with the right resources. TA has to ensure that where you get the right talent. So all those insights which we have prepared, which we have presented, approved by managers, leaders, we have gone back to the TA team and ensure that, okay, where you have to target, where you have to get. So this all has what is the learning as a leader to me came up to is, see, the source of data that is not 100% to be reliable in that case. What time you churn the data is very important, and that gives us and me and my CHRO this confidence is that, okay, wherever we are heading in that way, what was rightly required for an organizations, we meet that goal. Whatever was required, whatever the kind of an overall rules which has been followed by all of us, we have met all of them. So that gives a confidence to me that when you are accurate, when your data talks correctly, you make a right impact to all the levels of the organizations. And when you make a right impact, it may not reflect immediately. It's a long term goal. We all focus on not a short term goals. Our focus is to have a long term sustainability and growth for an organizations. So that's how my vision came up into it, that way whatever I will plan for a longer period of time, so that the results would not be immediately in favorable to an organization. But yes, when you go back and see 2 years down the line or 3 years down the lines, you said that the decisions you have made, that was right, that was something which we are encashing it right now, and we will ensure that we will keep on updating on the same track with that. And still, uh, this has been appreciated, consultant by the group of people those I have worked it in the past. We still meet, discuss on that, because we are again sitting in the same scenario, but the situation has reversed. The market is now closed. The market was blindly open that time. So I think that's something which was very important for me in terms of leadership skills in my space.
I think the way accuracy and data and the ownership, all the three areas are intertwined, especially in the function that you are in. I'm sure it will not only help you to get buying from different stakeholders, but also influencing them over a period of
Yes.
time. But let's just unpack this a little bit further. Okay. Where I'm sure that when reward decisions are announced, yeah, to the organization, they often involve balancing business priorities and employee expectations, right?
Yes.
So, can you share any situation where you had to make an unpopular decision and what leadership muscle it demanded?
Okay, so very unpopular decision is again the trust which I have put it in myself in that case. I'll say that this is my decision and I'll go back to it. So there was things that the leadership was not pretty much aligned in terms of the merit increase. I'll take two examples. So first is this one, obviously. So one is that where the leadership, the group leadership do not want to have, because the group was not performing that well. The market was not that good. But the decision is that I sit in India. I have an ownership of a people those who sits in India. But India is not a market which is being driven by the Western approach. We are a different market. We have a different skill sets, and we ensure our culturally minded is that employees see that every year they grow in an organization. not in terms of a level, but yes, in terms of a financial increase. So we remember very quickly is that when we had a detailed discussion with our CEO, CFO, and all other group leaders, it has been said that there is no increase this year because the market is not that good. We are not making too much of good revenues also. So we said that we cannot, we will not go ahead and do it. We will reinstate for another 6 months and we'll decide. But then it comes to us where our local leadership has came back to us that if we will not do, we will have a bigger problem because India itself is doing good, not a group is doing, but India is doing good. People expect that culturally binded market will attract them easily. In that case, what should we do? So then the something which has came into it that we collected some data out of it and we have gone back to the group and very clearly stated that why we need to have an salary increase cycle in India while not you cannot have it for the other regions. So that was a very a decision which was not so easy to make because you are challenging the management, you are challenging the cash flow, you are ensuring that you get money and that to be aligned with the market benchmark. So I think we used a lot of data which is there in the market. We said that okay, XYZ organizations are not doing, but yes, the companies like us are doing what they are doing, how they are doing, what is the way of doing. So it was not an upfront. I'll say that a normal salary increase we have done. Yes, we have planned in that way, which was not and a regular type of increases. So what gives into it in that case is that when you think differently, when you think about your people, when you ensures that you are an organization which has made money for a multiple years, this year could not be that good, but it does not mean that you leave your people behind. So that was an approach which was there in my mind when this task has been given back to us. It was not easy because it will happen only for India. We will not let other 17 countries to know that. That's also a very important task. So it was all happened at the back end. It was a close-ended, all manual efforts which we have put together. 1 month of sleepless nights to ensure that the data is being correct, increases are done, people are communicated, should not go out. But yes, what turns it out to be once it closed after 3 months when it was happening for the bigger organization, we were also a part of it as an ad hoc, and that's being appreciated in that way. Is that you sitting out at India with your team have took up a decision and put up a mirror in front of us to make us understand is that if you will not focus on employees today because we are not making money today, but we have made a lot of money in the past, we will make money again in the next year. But yes, the decision to ensure your people first culture and the trust which you have built in yourself and in your people has derived this in terms of we have to think and come back to the decision in just a 1 quarter. And you are again a part of it. So our employees have got 2 increases in a year, which was not supposed to be one in a year. So that's how the trust, which again I coming to a trust, and because my role is on about accuracy and trust. Because if I'm not able to build that my trust with my leadership, my legacy with my leadership, it will not help the organizations to sustain for a very long period of time. And we as in CNB professionals are being looked at the toughest time of the organizations. It's not that every time will come back to us in that. I'll just take another 1 minute to inform you on the second side of it, which is right now very prominent in the market, is the new wage code. I think implementing the new wage code was never an easy task because that's how
Mm.
your PNL is getting hit, and you do not want that the millions of euros to be get into your PNL just because there's a structural change happening. So there was a huge pressure for all of us to understand as an HR team, our CHRO, me and my peer colleagues in terms of a different that how we can design our structure where it should be a win-win situation for both of us, and an employee also and an organization also. So where we do not, as an CNB folks, I said that I ensure that my people come first, then my business comes first. Because if the people remain with me, business will obviously run in that way. So my decision to make sure that the impact to an employee should be least, and some of the absorption that to me has to go to an employer in that case, because that's how the balance will come into it. We started with the negotiations on millions of euros. In that case, there was a target which has been given it to us, but we able to match that. We implemented everything effective April. Today we are sitting on our balance sheets are pretty much okay. It is being reviewed by the groups also in that, but that was not easy task to ensure that your the exact leadership, the CXOs understand this thing, that they only see that the organization's PLN should not get impacted because the overall revenues will get impacted with that. But for us as human resource professionals, our first is obviously a people first culture where we come in. So we ensure that our people should not get impacted. If I'll say that your salary get reduced today, they would not accept it open-heartedly. So we have to target the changes in that time that they should not reflect in that way. The impact should be so minuscule that even they could not understand. But yes, at the same time, we have to go back and tell the leadership also is that what is the balance between two of them. So you are expecting X. I am saying there's just X and plus Y into it. That is your cost, which is not that much. And I think that's something which is, I think, one of the best projects I have managed in the last 3 months when I joined this company. And a lot of stakeholders, internal, external group, because we were derived by a group companies there. And you have to see and show that no, we are not getting impacted with our revenue in that case. And I think that's what is the leadership comes in. It's not only CNB who was owning it, it's me who was deriving it, it's the HRBPs who were on the ground ensuring it getting happened, and then CHRO ensuring the leaderships are being engaged. Then me, when it comes to as in CNB committee to go back and explain to everyone that this has happened, and then it comes up queries. So my HR operations team, those is being again a part of my business again, they ensured each and every queries to be answered. So today also we are answering, but yes, the flow of queries is now just 1%. So that's how the collaboration and trust and the delivery, the three piece of the leadership was very important here. And I was the center point of it, managing the topmost, the bottommost, and the middle, the peers one in that case. This has been a most challenging it's time for us for the last 3 months. But today we are pretty much comfortable, very good in terms of what we have implemented. We all are happy with that, and I think that's something which is I will tell to the new managers who are becoming into this role or they're aspiring to be a managers or a leaders in future. You have to see a situation. You have to see that when you can lead your seniors also, and I think that's what is a time when it comes to me. I try to deliver my best, and today I think everybody as an organization not only appreciates, accepts that our employees are still happy and they are no impact in terms of the changes which has been implemented by the regulatory aspect of it.
Awesome. I think both the examples which you shared were very powerful, clearly highlighting the collaboration, trust, and influencing muscles as a leader, whether at the same level of stakeholders that you are working with, or with your senior management, or with people inside the organization or outside the organization. And clearly, I think all these muscles go hand in hand. Yeah, you can't just focus on one area where you are currently working on. And appreciate you sharing both the examples here once again. Building on to what Mayank shared, Meena, I would like to also know from you. Looking back at your leadership journey, if you can tell us a leadership challenge that stretched you and the muscle which you have built along the way. Meenal, you're on mute.
I think a very recent example, not too recent, but maybe when I took up this role, which I currently handle. So maybe going back to this role, I think the role which I'm currently handling was something which did not exist in the organization. Okay, it was a very newly created role, and of course, it was one of its kind role which was getting created. Spanning across uh, businesses, where it was then at that time one of the largest role. Okay, uh, was this role required? Was a fundamental question which a lot of people had in mind, because the business as usual was running well. Okay, so you've got the leaders at the business level when I talk about HR leaders. And I think nothing was not happening. Okay. Yeah, but the role was created with a reason, purpose, I must say, of how the organization wanted to see the business being, I would say, managed. Yeah. So of course, then I took up the role, and since I said it was a new role, it all started with also writing down what's going to be the job description of this role. Okay, so it's very easy when you have to transition yourselves into roles which are already tested, available in the organization, and you have to move from one to the other. And I think most of us do that. It becomes initially a little difficult because it's just about the previous leader, the leadership style, and a new leader taking over. So there could be some unsettling which happens at the beginning of a new leader taking up a role, but it settles eventually unless there's something drastically challenging with the leader in terms of the leadership style, so and so forth. And I think we've all probably gone through these experiences as we've moved into different roles. um, Now this was one role where it took me almost a year to actually sink into the role. Moreover, because I was trying to figure out what is expected out of the role. Yeah. And because why? Because it's not that I wasn't informed about it. It was more of how to create your visibility in the role. Yeah. So I think that was a difficult time in my career. I would say one of the most difficult, because initially roles existed, you were just moving, you were moving up the ladder. uh, Roles were easy to do because they were more of business as usual. But I think this role built one leadership muscle in me, which was resilience. Yeah, this is my third year in the role. And I must say, with the support of the business, my leaders, my then manager, I think we all came a long way. Okay, so the first year was, difficult feedback. The second year, the feedback improved. And when I said feedback, it's the feedback to me as a leader. Third year, it improved a little better. And I think that's the journey I've been into in the last 3 years on how I looked at this change of role which happened. Okay, and I think building resilience becomes extremely important as a leader. That's one muscle leaders have to have, because uh, and there's a saying which is, when you're moving up, you start getting alone. Yeah.
True.
And when you
Yeah,
start getting alone, I think resilience helps you to stay put where you are.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for me, that was the situation. That was the leadership muscle. Not that I didn't have it. In fact, maybe I didn't realize my potential. I already had that leadership muscle, but I had not tested it.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it does happen.
Yeah,
You've got blind spots.
correct, correct.
Yeah.
And you
So,
didn't have the opportunity before. As
yeah,
you rose, you got
it
the
wasn't
opportunity.
tested before, I must say. Okay, and it really got tested so well. Yeah, I mean, probably the organization also gave me that feedback about it, that maybe if there was some other, leader in this role, would have probably quit by now.
Hmm.
So that
Absolutely.
at times does work for you, and it's good to have blind spots and then evolve to say that, oh, I could do something which I never realized could have been my strength.
Yeah. And I think the way one looks at blind spots per se also determines the journey further. If you're ready to accept the feedback of the blind spot, I think then you're ready to build that muscle in that sense
Yeah, so
as
Meeta,
well.
I think you've been the uh, you know uh, you've been the person who would understand it much better than me being a coach. Coaching is all about being open to feedback.
True.
Yeah, coaching
Absolutely.
only works when you're open to feedback, not otherwise. So when we also probably take up assignments, coaching assignments for a set of leaders, where we feel that the person will need help, I think if the leader is not open for a feedback, I think I just put it off, saying that I don't think we should coach this person, because
Hmm.
it's just a wastage of time for 6, 8, 9 months to say that, okay, मैंने coach दे दिया, tick mark कर लिया, and that's it. No, it doesn't work, because eventually the outcome of any coaching assignment should be how is the needle shifted, and the needle won't shift immediately. The needle will shift slowly, but at least are there signs of the needle shifting? That's good
Very
enough
true.
for you to know the success of coaching. And
Absolutely.
once it starts moving, then it will continue to move.
Very
Yeah. So I think that's where I am on this example of my personal journey.
interesting. And I think the very example of coaching and shifting of needles, which you spoke about, I think for organizations across sectors, it's essential to create that supportive environment as well for employees to bring in the shift rather than just putting them through training or coaching or assessments. And in the same context, I would like to ask both of you, what is that one leadership behavior that you frequently want to encourage in leaders today? You may not see them so often or so easily. Maybe if you could just name one or two behaviors which need to be really encouraged or sometimes nudged. Mhm.
Okay, so for me, I think two is very important is that you need to be fair and transparent because you are a
Mhm.
leader and you need to be transparent in any kind of a decision you make, a discussion you do, a feedback you pass. It needs to be fair and transparent, and also to be empathetic in that case because that's very important. If you do not have an empathy about what you are doing, that would not make sense. So I think for me, these two are very important to have as a leader once you grow or once you sustain that role for you or for your peers in that case.
Brilliant, brilliant. And anything
For
from
me,
you?
Mita, I think leaders need to know what's the purpose for which they are working.
The why.
The why part of it. Okay. And if you know your purpose, and I just recently met one leader, trying to understand, what kind of leadership style, the person has. And I think this person mentioned to me that, if my purpose is not met,
Mhm.
okay, I don't think I would really want to work. And that really hit me because all of us do work for compensations, titles, uh, engagements. Yeah, how many of us actually work for purpose? And purpose is
Mm,
very deep rooted, if you ask me.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes you tend to lose your purpose in the rat race,
Yeah.
of competition, of trying to prove yourself, in trying to align yourself at times, because leadership is all also about a lot of times of alignments. Yeah, you can't just directly get up from your seat and say, oh, I'm going to do this because I think this is right. Because you've got a lot of people around you who will get impacted because you're going to have an action done, or a decision taken. So, purpose is one which I feel needs to, I mean, I wouldn't call it a behavior, but it's something which needs to be there with every leader and at all times. You can't say my purpose is done in life because purpose is long, I mean, it's long term, it's not short term.
Yeah. And I think it sits at the core, right, of
It just sits
why
at the
you're
core.
doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Got you.
And
Got
when you ask the why piece of it, lot of leaders are not able to answer that.
you. Answer
They're
that.
running their businesses well, extremely successful at numbers, extremely successful at titles. But when you ask them what's the purpose for what you're doing this, sometimes we all get confused, including us. Yeah.
I think one needs to really reflect there about
Yeah.
the why.
Yeah. And I think one more behavior I feel leaders should have is courage. Extremely important because I have seen a lot of leaders shying away.
Yeah.
They may be well respected, they may be well experienced, but do have the courage. And I think connected to what Mayank said, being fair and transparent. So call a spade a spade. It helps. It helps
Yeah.
not you, but it helps the other person.
Very true.
Yeah,
Very
it
true.
may sound a little um, not so good, okay, but it helps the person. And I think I went through that journey personally. Maybe giving an example of the difficult times. So when you have been considered as a person who's a good performer, okay, and then a time hits on you saying that this is a feedback for you because as you're moving up the ladder, you are no more the good person anymore or the good performer anymore because the goalpost is moving ahead.
True.
Okay, and if
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to reach that goal post, what you did then, so it's like what got me here is going to get you there. Okay,
Very true.
and these realizations are so important. And why I'm talking about courage in this context is sometimes leaders may sacrosanct people, so perceptions are realities, right? At times, most of the times. So if somebody says Meenal is good, everybody starts saying Meenal is good. Okay, and when the the shift happens from Meenal being good to not so good, okay, not everybody in the organization realizes it, and they continue to call Meenal good. And same goes vice versa for people who are not so good performers. They may take efforts to move to good performance, but they still continue to be, titled as non-performers. And this is the reality of, organizations.
I
So
agree.
being
Yeah, yeah.
courageous enough to accept and shift, and we see that in most of the organizations when it comes to people development, when it comes to talent development.
Yeah, I agree. We just have to
They're so
kind of
subjective
bring it
about
up.
it at times.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely. And I
And
think so far in both your sharings, we've looked at how you have built your leadership muscles or practiced them or earned them over a period of time. And now we're moving into a very interesting segment of our conversation, which is the rapid fire round. And as you both know, they have to be quick answers, no overthinking. And the goal is to uncover certain leadership beliefs or habits behind the different leaders. Yeah. So let's start with Mayank. You just have to complete the sentence with one word. A leadership muscle every first time manager should build is
Ownership.
lovely. A leadership muscle that becomes critical at senior leadership level is
More as a data-driven decision making.
all right. So, yeah, data becomes more important as you rise further. Interesting. One leadership habit I wish I had started earlier.
I would say a collaboration.
Ah, yes. I think when you're an individual contributor, then
Yes.
that is second best that time. True. One piece of feedback that changed your leadership forever was
I think I've spoken it. It's trust.
trust. Absolutely, yes. And with that, now moving on to listening to Meenal's ideas or beliefs on leadership muscle. So, Meenal, I hope you're ready.
yes,
A leadership muscle every first-time manager should build is.
listening skills,
Okay, yes, that's also an underrated muscle. A leadership muscle that becomes critical at senior leadership level is.
building trust,
Uh-huh.
building
Okay.
trust,
Building trust. Super. One leadership habit I wish I had started earlier is.
ability to listen.
Okay. Interesting. One piece of feedback that changed my leadership forever was.
How do I make people feel special?
So people remember that, how they were treated, and hence that is one lesson which is
Yes,
taken with you.
learned it at a
Brilliant.
very, very later stage of my career, but learned it the hard way.
Mhm.
So,
Interesting. And as we are moving towards the conclusion of this interesting and insightful conversation, I would want to know again from both of you in one sentence, what does leadership muscles built, practiced, and earned mean to you?
Oh,
for
uh,
me, I think it's okay. I think what
okay, I think there's some network issue to be.
Yeah, no worries. You go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, it's more about you do decision making, a right decision at the right time. That is something that influence a lot to a bigger group of an organization. So when you become a center of point for anything which the organization trusts you, your decision making is very important, and that needs to be firm, clear, and people oriented, because that's how you will make a clear influence, a clear decision to your leadership that what is correct, what is not correct, and what needs to be a next step for you.
Brilliant, brilliant. So decision making at the core is what you're trying to bring out. Lovely. And for you, Meena?
I think it's building trust, security, and resilience.
Absolutely. And I think that is work in progress all the time, isn't it?
All the time.
We
Yeah.
never reach that end point and
Yeah. So I
say,
think for us, specifically when it comes to your team, uh, are you standing for them in their times of difficulty? I think that's a trust you need to build for them.
true,
Because
true.
if they know you're standing for them, I think teams can turn around anything from impossible to possible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening to, all the experiences and insights both of you are sharing, I think it's also reinforcing the point that leadership is, hardly about the title or the position one holds. It's absolutely about the muscles which managers and leaders ought to build over a period of time. And I think it is a muscle that is built through deliberate practice, strengthened through challenges, and revealed through everyday choices. And I would sincerely like to thank Mayank and Meenal today for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, your practical insights with us today. Uh, a special thanks to Ketan Kapoor, to Rajani Das, and to all the people at the back end and at HR Open House who have supported us to putting this together and bringing in a lot of value for all the listeners today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Meeta. And
Thank you, Meeta.
while our topic has been on build your leadership muscle, I think uh, I've gone through your book, which you have written, um, and I think it gets a lot of very very day to day perspectives, simple perspectives on you know how do you build self awareness, because I think that's the most important part of any leadership roles, right? Like, it's just not about titles. So it's again that mechanism of building self-awareness, leading with clarity, specifically during difficult times, because that's the time when your teams would look up to you for guidance, direction, a vision, so on and so forth. And then last piece, which of course I practice, and as I said, that was a blind spot. Developing resilience under pressure.
Ah,
I
yes.
think it's beautifully been mentioned by you in this book. And I think it's a must read, very simple to understand, not at all complicated. In fact, the font size to the book to everything is so simple, I must say. So first time managers, leaders in their earlier careers, yeah, I think definitely will benefit from this.
Well, thank you for your kind mention. And with this, we conclude today's conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Mike.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.